Rich, and this is Beekeeping with Rich. We're here in South Florida, November the 15th. This video probably won't air until after December 1st because we've shot several videos today. But it's about 78 degrees, beautiful skies. My wife's going to pan up. Doubted it. Won't be much worse on December the 1st or 2nd or 3rd whenever this airs. Trust me on that. It's beautiful. This is what they call the Chamber of Commerce weather time of year down here. So today we're going to go into the mysteries of the smoker. Something very near and dear to my heart. So now if my wife will move in a little closer, because this really isn't about my face. This is about what we're going to be doing a little bit closer here. So here's a beat up old smoker, which has seen me through about 5 years of beekeeping now. It's still going strong. We'll talk about the plug a little bit later on. So this is one of the greatest inventions in beekeeping. Now, beekeepers have known about using smoke since Egyptian times, certainly. We have hieroglyphs, or rather we have paintings on the tombs of them with a bowl of slow smoldering ash, using a fan to fan it into the beehives. But we've come a long way since then. It only took a few years, maybe 30, to go from the first iterations of a smoker to a smoker that is not in any way different than the one we're using today. Nobody in the 1890s would have raised an eyebrow at this smoker, except for the fact that it doesn't rust as fast. So, parts of the smoker are the bellows, and the fuel chamber, and the spout. You'll notice I took my spout all the way off. Usually they hang down to the front right here. But with a very simple flick of a pair of pliers, you can bend this tab very slightly out, and you can take your cover off. Why do you want to do that? Because you want to keep this area clean and this area clean, and it's easiest to do if you can take it off like that. Because if they're both clean, then you can put it on nice and tight like that. It doesn't fall off when you turn it upside down. That's not lit, that's just ash, because I just tripped it upside down. Because we still have the remains of my last fire in here, which we're going to look at over here for just a second. Sorry about that. Now, this was my last fire. You will notice that there are still pieces of what we call char cloth in here. These are bits of 100% cotton cloth, blue jean material, old flannel shirts. Blue jean material is wonderful. As long as it's 100% cotton, and you want to avoid getting any seams or anything that might have artificial fibers in it. And this is actually usable again, not that it's normally necessary to bother. But cotton is a wonderful material because it has the ability to maintain a flame without an exterior source of oxygen. There's a couple of extra oxygen molecules in its makeup which allow it to smolder very well once lit and last a good long time. And there's nothing worse than having a smoker poop out on you halfway through an inspection. So, first we're going to fertilize something nearby with the biochar that has been created from your smoker. Never waste anything. And then we're going to look at smoker fuel. Now, most people in the South will tell you the best smoker fuel is pine needles. And they're right. But you know, weirdly enough, I didn't have access to pine needles for the first few years that I was beekeeping, because southern pines really just aren't that common in South Florida. There are stands of them and such, but they're usually not in places that are accessible to me to go in with a rake. That issue has been resolved. I can get all the pine straw I want now, but I learned to use a lot of other materials first. One of the materials I learned to use was lemongrass, because we're in the tropics and I grow lemongrass and have grown lemongrass for 20 years because we cook with it. But now, whenever I cut back the lemongrass, which you have to do, I tie it up in a bundle, let it dry, chop it into little pieces, and it makes a large part of the basis of my fuel. Another thing you can use is just go to the pet foods or pet store and get bags of compressed cedar chips. Makes a somewhat hot flame for my taste. Smells great, but it's rather hot, and if you don't put something else on top of it, you could end up actually blowing sparks out on your bees, and that does not make for happy bees. Too hot a flame. Basically, the rule of thumb is that if you can't do this on your arm comfortably, then your smoke is too hot. And you can have materials that make for a hot flame, but as long as you pack it on top with something cooler, like some green grass clippings or some green leaves that protects the bees from the direct blast, because you just don't want sparks coming up on them. Now, take a look at my little can of beekeeping fuel here. You'll notice there is quite a lot of pieces of blue jean material and such in here. You just sit in front of the television at night and just snip, snip, snip. Cut some away. Mixed in here as well, you'll find cedar leaves from cedar tree back here. You'll find bits of egg carton. Love egg carton. Or any packing material that's like the old cardboard egg cartons that you might get things in, shipped in. Just break it into little pieces like this, and this makes great fuel. Now, I am not such a fan of just straight up cardboard, but it's usable. You can take a little strip of cardboard like this, roll it up, light the end of it, stick it in there, and it stays lit very well. It burns quickly, but if you're only going to be in the bees for 20 or 30 minutes, this is not a bad option. Just make sure you don't have any tape left on it. Make sure you don't have any labels left on it. You don't want anything artificial. And one thing, I'm never sure whether a particular piece of cardboard might have been treated to be anti-flammable or not, but I guess you kind of figure that one out when you try to light it. So at any rate, here's the most fun thing. The beekeeper, the state organization that does the official training courses for beekeepers, when it comes time to light your smoker, they give you one match, and they tell you you've got to light your smoker with one match. And that's quite amusing a lot of times, because a lot of us were taught tricks and tips so that we never actually lit our smokers with one match to start with. And we'll get into that in just a minute. But if you have to do that, make sure you have something nice and flammable, like the straw here. Pack it in the bottom. Actually, give me a moment. Should point out that in the bottom of your smoker, there is a secondary floor. You saw how much ash came out just now. Now, mind you, remember, we dumped that thing a moment ago, but all that ash was underneath this floor. There comes a point where you're going, why can't I get this thing to light? Well, probably you've emptied the top of your smoker, but you haven't emptied ash from underneath the floor, and it's packed everything in. So be sure to clean your smoker from time to time. One of the reasons I like to have my top detachable like this. So at any rate, once you're sure you have a good airflow underneath here, I'm going to push that the other way. Like this, you can see here, and that's just ash it's throwing up. flammable material underneath. Light it with that match and start feeding more material to it loosely. You want flames coming up and you're feeding and you're feeding. And when you're sure that you've got a lot of stuff lit down there, you start packing it in tight. Alright, and now it's time to start putting more stuff in. Pump, pump, pump. Hopefully we can get it to flame back up again. Well, we're just going to have to go with that. You'll notice I'm doing that with my hand, so it's not a terribly hot smoke. I'm not going to bother to pack the whole thing today, but at this point I'm packed about halfway up. The stuff that's ignited is way down here, and we have some material above it. And now we have a nice smoke. Notice it's just trickling out when we're not actively pumping the bellows. When we're actively pumping the bellows, it goes like this. Now for the tips and tricks. You want me to show you how we really start a smoker down here? This is how we really do it. Remember, this is stainless steel. So we just heat up the sides of our smoker. We pack it full of material. We heat up the side and we get it started this way. But you need to know the approved method to do it, or else you're not going to pass your course. So material is key. I love to use bits of this. Now, there's a company online that is. You want me to go down here, dear? Oh, well, again, this material here is a mixture of bits of cotton cloth. In my case, I happen to have it, so I use lemongrass stems. Pine needles are in there. Bits of, actually also, in my case, from the palm trees, we get this, but they call it palm tree fabric sometimes. It's this inner lining that works real well. And there's bits of burlap in here. And you can use bits of punk wood as well when you're going to be out there for 2 or 3 hours. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Too much smoke.
Yep, I do a good job. So that's how we light our smokers, and you'll notice this is nice and cool. It's not bothering my arm one little bit. And by the way, I use a smoker on myself more than I use it on the bees. I smoke my gloves, I smoke myself. If the bees start getting hot, I smoke me more than I smoke them. There's no need to smoke them more once you've done your initial bit. Now, I love to use a plug. I make these and donate them to the bee club. Most smokers have a 3/4 inch hole here, so a 3/4 inch piece of pipe and a piece stuck into it on the end keeps things nice and sealed up. The flame goes out and you're good to go. If you have to travel with your smoker after you've used it, but before you're certain that it's had time to die out, you should probably have a metal container large enough to put the entire smoker in and cover it up so that you don't end up starting a fire. I have friends who have had a fire in the back of their SUV because a smoker that was plugged but hadn't gone out fell over. That was not fun.
Is that why you use metal tables?
Oh, well, of course, eventually this starts getting hot down here, and if you put this on a plastic table, it's going to melt. Ask me how I know. I've done that. Now, if you put this smoker with this heat on it like this on a piece of carpeting in an SUV, well, you're going to know where you put that smoker down, because there's going to be a melted ring there real quick. Yes, put it down on a metal table. I have a wooden box that I carry things in, and I have a piece of 1/2-inch wire hardware cloth stapled to it, and this always goes on the hardware cloth so that it's actually above the wood by 1/4 of an inch, and there's no immediate direct contact. Yep. Let's see if we've snuffed it out completely, or whether we can bring it back to life. Nope. Well, certainly. This little trick down here is something that I invented, but that's a different video entirely, because that would be too long a process to show. But a little spring and a little plug in the chamber down here, along with the plug at the top, puts this thing out really fast. Otherwise, you should always dump your smoker at the end of a beekeeping session so that there's nothing left in it. I know it's tempting to say, oh, I was only out there for 10 minutes. That's still a good charge. I just have to put the flame out. And that's true if it's in your backyard and you can leave it on a metal table or a stone table or something, or on the top of a cinder block. But if you have to drive somewhere with your equipment, be safe. Well, that's all for now. Again, we'll be in the Christmas season by the time this video airs. So have a happy Christmas season, Yuletide, whatever. And we'll see you in the new year. Bye now.